Hi everyone, Peter here from Flow High Performance, and in this video we will cover how to prescribe proximity to failure for a hypertrophy training program. First and foremost, let's cover what exactly we mean by proximity to failure. Essentially, this refers to how close any given set is taken before failure. This is usually quantified using the rate of perceived exertion, or RPE for short, or the reps in reserve, or RIR for short, scales. These scales use numerical values to subjectively rate how close a set was taken to failure. A 0 RIR or a 10 RPE means that no more reps could have been performed in that set, or in other words, the set was taken to failure. An RIR of 1 or an RPE of 9 means that one more rep could have been performed in that set before failure, and an RIR of 2 or an RPE of 8 means that two more reps could have been performed before failure, and so on. So how close to failure do we want to take each set of lifting to maximize muscle growth? As a general recommendation, we want to train fairly close to failure on all sets to maximize the stimulus for growth. This is to ensure all motor units are recruited and appropriately trained so that they have a stimulus for growth. A general recommendation would be to train between 0 to 3 reps in reserve for the goal of hypertrophy. However, we probably want to avoid excessive training to complete failure because this may have some negative responses. When we train to failure, it takes a disproportionate toll on the body relative to the additional growth it induces. This means that training to failure is a big stress on the body from both a physical and mental perspective. So if we train to complete failure too frequently, we may be inducing too much fatigue and limiting our training volume. Instead, we are probably better off staying just shy of failure for the most part and performing more total training volume. The rep ranges and load that we use for any given exercise also determines how close sets should be taken to failure. Heavier loads recruit all motor units much sooner than lighter loads, which means they don't need to be taken as close to failure to maximize the hypertrophic response. On the other hand, high threshold motor units are only recruited towards the end of the set when we use lighter loads, meaning that these sets should be taken closer to failure. As a practical guideline, sets in the 6 to 12 rep range should be taken around 1 to 3 reps in reserve, and sets in the 12 to 20 plus rep range should be taken around 0 to 2 reps in reserve. Let's now implement the proximity to failure into the training program we previously created. We will use the reps in reserve system for this program, but RPE could also be used if that is preferred. For the heavy compound lower body lifts, we will use a more conservative proximity to failure as these exercises generally use lower rep ranges, and we don't need to risk safety for the sake of taking them closer to failure. So for the squat and stiff leg deadlift, we will use 2 to 3 reps in reserve. For all other compound lifts, 1 to 2 reps in reserve will be prescribed, as these lifts will probably use more moderate rep ranges. And for isolation lifts, all sets will be taken 0 to 1 reps in reserve, as these exercises are less systemically fatiguing and will generally use higher rep ranges. The reps in reserve remain constant throughout the entire mesocycle, and performance can be adjusted based on the individual response to the training program. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already.